this year. 2026, we're officially in it. And I'm just curious about, as someone who's been involved heavily with Michigan politics, tell me about your thoughts as we head towards the midterms. The fact that this president showed up in Michigan does show how important he thinks that state is. And is there any in-state strategy that you know about in order to ensure that Republicans retain the House, the Senate, and we're in good shape as we come out of these midterms in November?
Well, absolutely. I would like to say I believe, and I've heard from many different sources, that Michigan is one of the top states for Senate. We have an open Senate seat, and we're looking at taking that Senate seat. The president has endorsed Mike Rogers for that Senate seat. Him being here, the president being on the ground in Michigan is critical because we need him on the ballot. As Susie Wiles said, we're going to make sure he is on the ballot. We were incredibly successful in 24 in the state of Michigan. We actually won our state house back with him on the ballot. So we want to make sure not only do we get our state house and Senate back, but that U.S. Senate seat goes to Mike Rogers. We also have an open congressional seat that John James stepped out of. We want to make sure that we win that seat back. We've got to keep that. We've got to hold Tom Barrett's seat. We want to make sure that Bill Huizenga is protected. He's always been safe, but they do have a Democrat running. They're looking at that seat. So we want to make sure that if we can get the president here on the east side and the west side, we want to make sure that we can do that. And we also have Kristen McDonald-Rivet is a Democrat. We want to make sure we get her out of that seat and we win that seat because that should be a Republican seat. So we think we can actually gain a House seat here and we can gain a Senate seat here. That is huge for the entire country. Right. So we are hoping, and I'm pleading for the president and the vice president to spend a lot of time in Michigan.
I think they will. There's no doubt about it. They understand the significance of these midterms. And I always stress the importance of this to people. It's so easy during a midterm year, Tudor, to say, like, I don't know, it's a midterm election. Donald Trump's in the White House. Like, we're good to go. That's not the case. He needs people on Capitol Hill making sure that his agenda moves forward. He needs people who have the America First MAGA agenda there in the House and the Senate. Otherwise, everything is going to be stagnant. Otherwise, we're going to see impeachments of this president. Otherwise, you're going to see Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. a state. Otherwise, they're probably going to eliminate the filibuster. If Democrats get their way and they get control, there's so much damage they can do. We want to continue the success that this president has had from the very beginning of this term. I would say the beginning of all of it, but significant progress has been made over the past year for the country, for the world. And we've got to keep that going. Talk to people directly about how important it is that they get involved. You cannot stay home for these midterm elections. Everybody's got to get out and vote like it's a presidential election year, because in so many ways, what happens in November will dictate the last half of President Trump's second term.
Well, and as you've seen so many great things happening, as you've seen prices going down, you see interest rates going down, you're going to see those go down even more. You're going to see energy costs going down. And we had Howard Lutnick on the Clay and Buck show over the holidays, and he was talking about how are we going to ensure that as we bring data centers into the United States, and that is a big concern, how as we grow data centers that we have the energy. That is something that I trust this administration with. I do not trust the Democrats with. It is so important that as we create energy policy, as things are changing with AI, that we make sure that we have the Trump administration and he has the policymakers in place that are going to support what they're going to do to make sure our costs stay low as we see that those new data centers coming in. So it is critical that you look at this just the same way you looked at 2024, because your personal finances are going to either benefit or be incredibly hurt. But also, we don't want taxpayer dollars going toward phony impeachments. We don't want distractions on his policies. And so as you look back at what happened in 2016, 2018, what we were seeing, the Democrats plotting, we can't let that happen again, because we are on such a good track right now of making sure we have great national security. We're looking at peace in the Middle East. We're looking at world peace. He is stopping wars, which people say, oh, America first. That is America first. That is saving you so much money. That is protecting this country. The national security is through the roof because of what this president is doing. All of these things affect your life and your pocketbook. but we have to have you come out and vote. I know a lot of people will look at this and go, what is my congressman going to do? I'm just for Trump. If you are just for Trump, then you got to make sure he gets his last 2 years. And that means you do not have any Democrats taking away from what his agenda is. Go out and vote, work, get involved with your local GOP, knock doors, make sure you are out there, be active on social media, make sure you are talking to your neighbors and getting them out. When you hear this message, take this message to them, because they may not understand that every one of these races is critical to making sure that President Trump is able to do what he promised in 24.
Yeah, well said. Exactly right. Before I let you go, as the co-chair of the RNC during the 24 election, we worked really hard across the country to ensure transparency and free and fair elections. There was a lot of question coming out of 2020 about was it safe to even go vote? Did it even matter? Because did it feel like somebody was going to just usurp your vote with, dead cats voting and this sort of thing, Tudor? Michigan was a tricky state. I will tell you, we had to file several lawsuits there in the city of Detroit. I was one of the first ones whenever I arrived into that position, because you're supposed to have a parity and an equal number of Republican and Democrat poll workers. But what was happening there in Detroit is that they were saying, oh, yeah, we have the same number. Meanwhile, there were like 8 people who were Republicans who'd been approved to work in these polling locations and like 300 Democrats. And so we had to work really hard to even that out. Everybody out there needs to understand that the fight for that is not over either. We're going to have to stay on top of the transparency in these elections, keeping them free and fair, because it's the foundation of our entire system here in the United States. If we don't have free, fair, and transparent elections, we might as well call ourselves a communist country, which some of these Democrats, quite frankly, would really like. Your state is very tricky. And I hope that we have good people who are looking out for all of this. But this is the message I have. If you're a person listening to this and you are in the state of Michigan, go to your local GOP offices. Say you want to volunteer. Get involved. You can go become a poll watcher, poll worker, and you can ensure free, fair, transparent elections as we head into these midterm election years. Because, Tudor, I don't know that anything is more important.
No, and I will actually note that we just had our Macomb County clerk come out and expose that he was looking at the fact that we had a bunch of non-citizens who were being called to jury duty, and they were saying, no, I'm a non-citizen, I can't vote. And he said, well, wait a minute, if they're on for jury duty, are they on the voter roll?
Exactly.
So he compared and he found that several of them are on our qualified voter roll. And of those people who were on, it was like 27% of those people who were on the voter roll had voted in our elections, non-citizens voting in our elections. His name is Anthony Forlini. He's running for Secretary of State. So I know you have worked closely. The RNC had to sue our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, who's now running for governor, multiple times. I think 6 of those lawsuits ended up, I believe, making our elections much more secure. But as we look at this election, we will have Governor, Attorney General, and Secretary of State. Tony Forlini is working so hard for us. He has already exposed this. We need to make sure we get a Republican in that seat.